I'm not calm, I'm furious.
Everything is...
The instant that the HOA president's BMW grazed my combine, I realized she'd handed me the key to her own downfall, a 40,000-pound combine cutting corn. A white BMW steers right into my path. A scrape, metal shrieking. Her luxury car just struck the harvester blade. She leaps out, flailing at my machine like it's the offender, looming small beneath its height. I'm up in the cab, phone in hand, recording every second. Big mistake, Brenda. She lost her car, her clout, and $30,000. All because this entitled suburbanite chose to pick a fight with the wrong farmer. Want to know how a single scrape toppled an HOA despot? Let's dive in. What would you do if some HOA Karen tried to stop your harvest on land you own? Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Extra points if you've tangled with HOA nightmares. I'm Jake Hartwell, third-generation farmer on 240 acres of Indiana corn. 20 years I've worked the ground my grandfather passed down. My wife Sarah, 2 kids, barely profitable farm, but it's our life. Then 3 years ago, Meadowbrook Estates popped up next door like invasive weeds. Suddenly I had neighbors who wanted country charm without the realities of country life. Enter Brenda Ashworth, 52, former corporate HR, HOA president with a God complex. Pearl white BMW, designer everything. She treats my lifetime of labor like a lifestyle choice. She's the woman who fled the city for rural quiet and then spent every day trying to turn it back into a subdivision. The fight began over my access road. For 80 years, my family used the same dirt lane to reach the backfields. It's in the deed, a legal easement dating to 1943. But now that road crosses Brenda's cherished HOA common space, and she decided my tractors were ruining her immaculate landscaping. Picture it. I'm loading fertilizer bags when she clacks over and heels, clipboard in hand. Diesel and fresh manure hang in the morning air. She wrinkles her nose as if I'm personally offensive. "This ends today, Mr. Hartwell," she announces, waving paperwork. "Your agricultural vehicles are destroying our entrance. Use the highway route. That detour added 4 miles, busy roads, rush hour harvest trucks. Pure nonsense." "Lady, my grandfather built that road before your HOA was an idea," I told her. "We'll see about that. I have people at City Hall." Classic move, when facts don't help, threaten mysterious connections. But Brenda didn't stop there. She launched a full campaign. Noise complaints about my 5 a.m. work, petitions alleging industrial farming hazards. She even set up a folding chair at my access road, playing sentry over every piece of equipment. The gravel crunch under her chair legs became the soundtrack to my mornings. She'd sit with an umbrella, snapping photos and filling out violation forms like they were war crime reports. My neighbor Jim finally snapped one morning. "Brenda," he called, "do you know the difference between you and Jake? He feeds people. You just feed drama." Her face went beet red, but she kept scribbling. The harassment escalated. Anonymous county complaints about environmental dangers, social posts about unsafe practices, and even a call to the school board about Sarah's supposed conflict of interest for teaching while married to a problematic farmer. Then came the ultimatum, an official HOA letter ordering me to stop incompatible agricultural operations on my own property with threats of daily fines. That night, Sarah found me in the barn staring at their legal threats. The sweet hay smell mixed with my anger. "Jake, this is harassment." We fight back. "How?" she asked. "Sarah's smart. You're a farmer. Patience. Research everything. Build the case." Right then I saw how she'd miscalculated. Brenda thought she was hunting me. Farmers know predator from prey, and this predator was about to learn she'd picked the wrong target. I decided to plant seeds and wait for harvest. But this crop would be different. Evidence, documentation, legal ammunition. Here's what city folks never get about country people. We don't fight loud and fast. We fight quiet and thorough. Autumn's in the air, leaves dying, corn ripening. And with it came the promise of harvest. Brenda Ashworth was about to find out what happens when you declare war on a man who knows how to reap what others sow. Time to teach this city girl how problems get handled in farm country. A week before harvest, Brenda moved to open warfare. Her military-style surveillance began. She parked herself at my access road each morning at 5 sharp folding chair, umbrella, and paperwork, stacked high. She called it her agricultural vehicle monitoring station. It looked like a one-woman border checkpoint, clipboard full of violation forms. Digital camera, even a little cooler with bottled water because apparently harassing farmers is thirsty work. The smell of coffee from her thermos mixed with diesel as I cranked up my John Deere that first morning. She waved me down like a traffic cop. "Hold on there, Mr. Hartwell. I need to document this vehicle for community safety records." "Lady, it's a tractor on my road." "Your road crosses HOA property. I'm conducting a safety audit," she said, snapping photos like my tractor was evidence in a case. Model numbers, license plate, timestamps, the whole theater. Her camera's metallic click became my new alarm, but farmers are methodical. While Brenda played pretend police, I did real homework. That weekend I went to the county courthouse. You know, the musty smell of old government buildings, paper, dust, and decades of bureaucracy. I spent Saturday in the basement archives digging through property records. The clerk, Mrs. Henderson, remembered my grandfather. "Jake, honey, what's all this about? Someone giving you trouble over the old access road?" she said, laughing. "HOA president thinks she can block his easement." She laughed and then showed me the paperwork. "Child, your granddaddy's easement is 30 feet wide." I helped file the original paperwork when I was starting here. 30 feet. I'd only been using maybe 12 feet trying to be neighborly. My dad used to say, "Son, easements are like family names. They don't die. They transfer with the land. Always know what's yours." Monday I hired county surveyor Bill Morrison to mark the exact boundaries. $300 well spent. Watching Brenda's face when those orange stakes went in was priceless. Those stakes didn't just mark my access, they ran right through her beloved rose garden. Turns out Brenda had planted her "Welcome to Meadowbrook Estates" flower bed partly on my legal easement. Her monitoring station was literally trespassing on my 30-foot right-of-way. Tuesday, she was waiting with chair and clipboard when I pulled up. The gravel crunch under my tires felt especially satisfying. "What are those orange stakes doing in our landscaping?" she demanded, hitting that entitled suburban pitch. "County survey markers, ma'am. My easement's 30 feet wide, not 12. "You've been camping in the middle of my legal right-of-way." Her face went from confused to angry to pure panic. "You can't just destroy our flower beds." "I didn't destroy anything, Brenda. The county surveyor marked the legal boundaries based on my grandfather's 1943 deed, the same deed on file since before your parents were born." "This is harassment." "I'm calling an emergency HOA board meeting," she spat. "Go ahead," I said. "But you might want to relocate your surveillance operation. You're trespassing on my easement." She packed up faster than a circus leaving town. Her folding chair snapped shut with a satisfying metallic clatter. That afternoon, Jim texted me, saw Brenda marching around with a tape measure and calculator. "Looks like she swallowed a lemon sideways," he said. Thursday's emergency HOA meeting was theater. Sarah and I didn't attend, we weren't members, but small-town gossip spreads faster than the internet. Brenda tried to persuade the board to contest my survey, accusing me of weaponizing property law to terrorize the community. Problem was, 3 board members remembered my grandfather. They knew exactly what those orange stakes meant. Reality check, survey grade accurate. Friday morning brought sweet silence. No monitoring station, no clipboard queen, just Brenda's BMW parked at the very edge of my access road. She sat inside, glaring at my orange stakes as if they'd insulted her mother. The autumn sun flashed off her windshield as I rolled by in my tractor. The smell of HOA trimmed grass mixed with farmland earth. Suburbia and agriculture meeting, but only one side had the law on its side. In my rear view, I watched her get out and walk to the stakes, calculating how much of her landscaping budget had been planted on my property. That's when I knew this was only round 1. Entitled "People don't learn when proven wrong, they just invent new ways to be wrong." The question wasn't whether she'd retaliate. It came down to how spectacularly she would mess up next. Brenda's retaliation arrived at 6:01 a.m. on Monday, a county noise inspector at my gate holding an official clipboard and his measuring gear. "Mr. Hartwell, we've had multiple complaints about industrial farming operations violating residential quiet hours." I nearly spat out my coffee. Industrial farming? My family's corn farm has been here since 1943. We've received several reports about machinery noise before 7 a.m. disturbing Meadowbrook Estates residents. Several reports. One complainer against 80 years of farming. The smell of bacon sizzling in Sarah's pan mingled with my rising annoyance as the bureaucrat measured decibel levels on my perfectly ordinary John Deere. while he fiddled with his sound meter. Brenda launched a media offensive. She'd turned concerned citizens of Millbrook County into a Facebook faction, posting daily images of what she labeled agricultural pollution. In reality, just normal farm dust on dry autumn days. Her pièce de resistance went locally viral, dangerous industrial farming threatening our children. Toxic dust clouds. Heavy machinery operated without safety oversight. When will officials protect families from agricultural harassment? The responses split exactly as you'd expect. Newer residents alarmed, longtime locals pushing back. Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived here 40 years, replied, "Brenda, that's corn dust. It's been here longer than you. Maybe move somewhere without farms." Still, some suburbanites bought her story. Tuesday morning, Sarah held up her phone at breakfast. The toast crunch sounded amplified by the tension. "Honey, she's got a dozen people convinced you're running some kind of toxic waste operation." Then I remembered something my extension agent had told me years ago. In farm conflicts, paperwork beats feelings every time. Back then I thought it excessive. Now it felt prophetic, so I went full on with documentation. Cameras on every entry, time-stamped logs of activity, photographs showing normal dust levels, weather records matching atmospheric conditions. I dug into Indiana's right to farm statutes. As it turns out, if your agricultural operation was there first, newer neighbors can't later claim nuisance. The law specifically shields farmers from precisely the tactics Brenda was using. Wednesday morning escalated. 3 orange traffic cones blocked my access road with an official-looking sign reading, "Road closed. Safety inspection HOA board order." The metallic scrape of cone on gravel carried across the neighborhood as I pulled them aside, cameras rolling. Brenda appeared as if she'd been waiting in the hedges. "You can't remove official safety equipment," she hissed. "This is my legal easement." "Those cones are trespassing. The HOA board voted for a temporary safety closure during harvest," she insisted. "The HOA has zero authority over my easement, and obstructing agricultural access is criminal interference in Indiana." Her face went pale. Criminal. She hadn't looked that far. "You're bluffing." "HOAs control common areas." "This isn't common area. It's my family's easement since 1943. Want to see the survey again?" For the first time, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. She was beginning to grasp that she might have crossed a legal line. That's when things took another turn. That afternoon, my phone rang. County Sheriff's Department. "Mr. Hartwell, Deputy Martinez, we got a complaint about road blockades and agricultural harassment. Someone filed formal charges. Need you to come in for a statement." My heart kicked. Had Brenda really called the cops on me? "Deputy, what kind of charges?" "Criminal interference with agricultural operations. Complainant says someone's been systematically blocking farm access roads and filing false reports." "Are you the victim or the perpetrator?" "Beautiful." Someone else had reported Brenda's blockade as criminal. My cameras had recorded everything. "I'm the farmer. I've been getting harassed by the HOA president who doesn't understand property law." "Ah, yeah. We see these suburban farm disputes more and more. Bring your documentation. We'll sort it out." Thursday morning, I drove to the sheriff's office with my evidence folder. The waiting room smelled of coffee and old leather. Deputy Martinez was no nonsense and understood rural issues. "Mr. Hartwell, looks like you've got a classic case of suburban overreach. Your documentation is solid. We're opening an investigation into agricultural harassment." "What does that mean?" "If someone's systematically interfering with lawful farming operations through false complaints and physical blockades, they could face criminal charges." The autumn air on the drive home felt different. Crisper. Cleaner, like justice mixed with ripening corn. Brenda had tried to drag this to law enforcement. Careful what you wish for, lady. Her BMW sat at the edge of my access road when I arrived back, Brenda inside on the phone, probably with a lawyer or her husband or whoever suburban folks call when their smear campaign backfires. Through my windshield, I watched her hang up and stare at the farmhouse. From 50 yards, I could see the calculating posture. This wasn't finished. Desperate people do stupid things, and Brenda was getting desperate. Friday morning, she detonated. A Channel 8 news van pulled into my driveway at 7 a.m. "Ma'am, you called about agricultural terrorism?" The reporter, Jessica Torres, sounded skeptical. "Absolutely. This man is using industrial farming as a weapon against families." Brenda gestured at my John Deere idling in the barn. Toxic dust clouds, intimidation tactics, deliberate harassment of suburban residents. I watched from the kitchen window, my coffee cooling, as Brenda shredded her own credibility on live TV. Sarah's bacon scent mingled with a private, guilty pleasure, the satisfaction of watching someone snare themselves with their own rope. "How long has this farm operated here?" Jessica asked. "That's irrelevant. Children's safety comes first." "But if farming predates the subdivision, are you taking his side?" "This is media bias." Brenda's voice climbed into that pitch that makes dogs howl. Jessica and her camera person exchanged looks, and after 8 minutes of Brenda ranting about agricultural conspiracies and farming terrorism, packed up and left. "They didn't even ask for my comment." Brenda's humiliation only made her more dangerous. Saturday morning, I discovered my access road completely blocked. Not just cones this time, but Khan's professional sawhorses with yellow caution tape and official-looking signs. Road closed by order of Millbrook County HOA. The metallic clank of equipment being set up at dawn had woken the whole subdivision. My security cameras captured the midnight operation, Brenda directing 3 others like a foreman, everyone in reflective vests to look official. The premeditation was breathtaking, time for my own nuclear option. In my legal research, I'd found something satisfying. Indiana Code 3230-6 classifies agricultural interference as a serious felony. Anyone who willfully interferes with agricultural operations can face up to $10,000 in fines plus civil damages. Blocking farm access, textbook agricultural interference. Saturday afternoon, I went to see Martha Hendress, the agricultural attorney Jim recommended. Her office smelled of old law books and righteous anger. "Jake, this is Agricultural Harassment 101. Your documentation is prosecution ready." "What's my next move?" "Let them keep escalating while we build the criminal case. Desperate people make stupid mistakes." She was right. Sunday night at 3 a.m., my trail cameras caught Brenda's dumbest move yet. Motor oil. She'd poured a full quart of Valvelvaline near my equipment staging area to fabricate evidence of environmental contamination. The acrid petroleum scent mixed with the morning dew as I inspected the scene Monday. But then the beauty of it unfolded. Within 2 hours, she'd called the county environmental office to report hazardous chemical spills from agricultural operations. Inspector Dave Richardson took one look at the clearly planted evidence. "Mr. Hartwell, this oil pattern's all wrong for an equipment leak. Someone poured this deliberately." "Got security footage?" Dave watched my 3 a.m. video of Brenda playing environmental terrorist and whistled low. "That's criminal environmental fraud. We're pressing charges." Meanwhile, her Facebook crusade had swelled to 60 members demanding agricultural justice. Her posts grew wilder. Toxic farming weapons disguised as tractors. Chemical warfare against suburban families. The farming community fought back. Jim organized a photo campaign showing historical images of the area when it was all farmland. Local farmers shared modern safety standards, agricultural protection statutes, and environmental compliance records. But Brenda had one last desperate ploy left. Wednesday afternoon, 2 state environmental inspectors arrived with federal paperwork. "Mr. Hartwell, we're investigating reports of Clean Air Act violations, soil contamination, and hazardous material storage." My stomach dropped. State inspectors meant serious business. The bureaucratic smell of government forms filled my kitchen as they explained someone had filed detailed complaints alleging federal environmental crimes. 4 hours of testing, soil samples, air quality readings, equipment inspections, chemical storage reviews, and they handed me their verdict. "Mr. Hartwell, your operation exceeds all federal standards. You're actually cleaner than required." Inspector Williams paused. "However, we found evidence of fraudulent contamination intended to frame your farm. The oil spill was staged. What happens now?" "Federal environmental fraud charges. Whoever did this faces serious prison time." That evening, Deputy Martinez called with an update. "Jake, your neighbor just upgraded to federal charges: environmental fraud, filing false federal reports, agricultural terrorism. She's facing 5 to 10 years. The autumn sun slid over my cornfields, casting gold across acres nearly ready for harvest. The sweet smell of ripening corn mingled with the satisfaction of watching justice catch up to entitled stupidity. Still, something told me Brenda had one more desperate move left. People don't go quietly when federal prison looms. They go down swinging. Thursday morning, Eleanor Walsh dropped another bomb that changed everything. The 73-year-old retired accountant had been digging through HOA financial records, public information she'd requested as a concerned homeowner. She spread the papers across my kitchen table like she was dealing cards in a high-stakes poker game. "Jake, honey, your neighbor's been stealing." Sarah's fresh coffee scented the air as Eleanor pointed to a line item. Legal consultation services, agricultural dispute resolution, $15,000 in 6 months. "That's a lot of money to harass one farmer," Sarah observed. "Gets better." Eleanor's eyes twinkled with the delight of catching a thief. All payments went to Ashworth Property Solutions, LLC. My stomach dropped. "Guess who owns that company?" "Brenda's husband. Richard Ashworth is the registered agent. She's been billing the HOA to bankroll her personal crusade against you." Every invoice traced the escalation: agricultural nuisance consultation, $2,500 environmental compliance research, $3,000 legal strategy development, $42,200 each harassment campaign paid for out of her neighbor's dues. "But hang on, there's more," Eleanor said, adopting a prosecutorial tone. "The BMW lease, also routed through Ashworth Property Solutions. She's funneling HOA management fees to cover her car payments." Sarah slammed her coffee down. "She's stealing from the people next door. $23,000 over 18 months, Eleanor confirmed. Straight-up embezzlement. The real jaw-dropper was tucked inside the insurance paperwork. Eleanor had somehow gotten hold of Brenda's BMW lease. Don't ask how retired accountants procure these things. The personal vehicle lease, she read, explicitly forbids commercial or business use. Violation triggers immediate lease termination and full financial responsibility. The details meshed like tumblers snapping into place. Every time Brenda drove that BMW for official HOA business, surveillance runs, harassment operations, equipment roadblocks, she breached her lease. If the car's damaged during any HOA activity, she's toast. Eleanor explained, "No insurance coverage, no lease protection, total financial catastrophe." I started laughing. Really laughing. The woman who had been terrorizing me for months had fashioned a flawless booby trap for herself. "There's one last nail in her coffin," Eleanor said. HOA bylaws demand competitive bids for any contract above $1,000. She never solicited bids for these services. "That's a breach of fiduciary duty," Sarah leaned back. "So she's embezzling funds, committing insurance fraud, and shirking her legal obligations to the community, while spending stolen money to harass Jake," Eleanor added. "It's criminal conspiracy with a paper trail." Morning sunlight poured through the kitchen window, lighting the piles of evidence on the table. For months I'd been playing defense. Now I understood the game had totally shifted. "What's our next move?" Sarah asked. "We document everything and prepare for the annual HOA meeting," Eleanor said. "When homeowners see how much of their money she's burned on her personal vendetta, they'll demand her head on a platter." I thought about harvest season approaching, about my cameras capturing everything, about Brenda's BMW sitting in her driveway like a ticking financial time bomb. "She's going to keep escalating," I said. "People facing prison and bankruptcy get frantic." Eleanor smiled like a grandmother plotting holiday surprises. "Let her escalate. Every action she takes now just piles onto her criminal charges." The sweet scent of justice blended with autumn air drifting through the open windows. Brenda thought she was hunting me. Instead, she'd been digging her own grave, and I had the perfect shovel to finish the job. By Friday afternoon, my kitchen had become mission control for the most satisfying revenge plot Millbrook County had ever seen. Martha Hendress arrived first, her agricultural law expertise leading the charge. Eleanor Walsh brought forensic accounting mastery and a box of neatly organized evidence that would make FBI agents giddy. Bill Morrison, county extension agent, showed up with farming practice documents and 4 decades of dealing with suburban nonsense. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martha announced, spreading legal papers across my kitchen table. "We're about to run a masterclass in how proper documentation destroys entitled idiots." The aroma of Sarah's fresh cookies mixed with the heady anticipation of retribution as we assembled our case. Eleanor took point on the financials. $23,000 in fraudulent expenses, but I found more as I dug deeper. Landscaping contracts steered to Brenda's nephew without competitive bids. Another $8,000 in consulting fees for services never delivered, $4,000 more. Total embezzlement? Martha asked. $35,000 siphoned from homeowners to bankroll private vendettas and enrich family, Eleanor replied. Bill whistled low. That's felony territory in any state. Martha opened her laptop. Here's what we know legally. Agricultural interference, multiple violations, environmental fraud, potential federal charges, embezzlement, state felony. Insurance fraud, another felony. She's looking at serious prison time. But our ace in the hole was my documentation system. 6 months of security camera footage, time-stamped activity logs, correlated weather records, photos of every harassment incident. I'd accidentally built a prosecutor's dream case. Jake, this documentation is professional grade, Martha said, scanning my files. Most farmers keep maybe 10% of this detail. You've got everything. My extension agent had always told me to document everything in farm disputes, I remembered. It had seemed like overkill then. It's prosecution gold now, Martha confirmed. Sarah returned with fresh coffee and tactical insight. The annual HOA meeting is next Thursday. All homeowners must attend for budget approval. Perfect timing. Eleanor said budget meetings force financial transparency. We reveal the embezzlement while everyone's focused on money. Bill would handle the agricultural expertise angle. I'll prepare a presentation on modern farming safety standards, environmental compliance records, and agricultural protection laws. Show the community Jake's operation exceeds all requirements. Martha sketched our legal plan. We file comprehensive criminal complaints Monday morning, agricultural harassment, environmental fraud, embezzlement, insurance fraud. Let law enforcement build the criminal case while we ready civil recovery. The technology edge belonged to my 17-year-old son, Mike, who'd been quietly archiving Brenda's social media campaign. Dad, I've got screenshots of every false post, every bogus environmental claim, every harassment campaign she organized. Can you make a video compilation? I asked. Already done. Set to music and everything. It beautifully shows her slide from reasonable complaints to utter lunacy. Eleanor had identified our coalition of concerned homeowners, 43 residents asking questions about HOA finances. They sense something is wrong but lack specifics. Once they see the evidence, they'll demand action. The insurance angle was our secret weapon. Martha had discovered that Brenda's use of the BMW during harassment campaigns voided multiple coverages: comprehensive collision and liability. If that car is damaged during any HOA-related activity, she's personally on the hook for everything. How personally liable? Sarah asked. $40,000 for the BMW plus damages to whatever she hits, plus legal liability for any injuries. Total financial ruin, Eleanor said. Bill raised the community psychology perspective. Rural areas don't tolerate thieves, especially those who steal from neighbors. Once homeowners learn she spent their money to harass Jake, social pressure will be fierce. We planned a media strategy around Tom Onyx at the local paper. He's been following the story, understands the agricultural angle, and has contacts at regional outlets. When we expose the financial fraud, it'll get press. Martha advised patience in revealing our evidence. Let her keep escalating through next week. Every desperate move she makes piles on criminal charges and alienates more homeowners. The trap was nearly complete. Brenda thought she was fighting a single farmer. She was about to face the whole community, law enforcement, insurance investigators, and federal prosecutors all at once. There was one more element I considered: harvest timing. My final corn harvest was scheduled the day before the HOA meeting. If history repeated itself, she'd try something dramatic during harvest. With all our cameras rolling and law enforcement already investigating, Martha smiled. Perfect. Eleanor organized our evidence into presentation form, financial charts, a harassment timeline, documentation of the fraud schemes. This would take 20 minutes to present and demolish her completely. The autumn sun dipped over my cornfields as our war council wrapped up. The sweet scent of ripening grain mingled with the anticipation of both agricultural and personal harvest. Sarah walked our allies to their cars while I stood on the porch, staring across my land toward Brenda's subdivision. Tomorrow would begin the final week of this conflict. You ready for this? Sarah asked, joining me. Been ready since she first set up that checkpoint. Time to teach this entitled suburbanite how country justice works. The stage was set, evidence gathered, allies in position. Now we just had to watch Brenda step into the trap she'd dug. Monday morning, Brenda escalated to full sabotage mode. I found out at 5 a.m. when my security system started screaming alerts. Someone had tried to disable my cameras. The metallic scrape of a ladder on the barn wall echoed through pre-dawn as I investigated. My battery-powered backup trail cameras, hidden as insurance, had captured everything. Brenda, at 3 a.m., dressed in dark clothes, attempting to spray paint my primary security cameras. What she didn't know was that I'd installed redundant systems after Martha warned about desperate people doing desperate things. Every camera she thought she'd disabled had a backup. Every angle she tried to block had an alternate view, the acrid smell of spray paint mixed with morning dew as I reviewed the footage. She'd spent 2 hours trying to manufacture a blind spot for whatever she planned next. By noon, her next move became obvious. Motor oil again, but this time with flair. Instead of just pouring it near my gear, she staged a seemingly legitimate spill trail from my tractor to the subdivision storm drain. The environmental theater was Oscar-worthy. She'd even scattered dead fish near the drain and photographed the scene for her Facebook campaign: agricultural pollution killing local wildlife, chemical contamination from industrial farming. Within hours, she'd called 3 agencies: County Environmental, State Water Quality, and the federal EPA, reporting massive agricultural chemical spills threatening groundwater, but her desperation showed. The oil trail was too neat, too obviously staged. Real equipment leaks leave irregular patterns shaped by machinery movement and slope. Her Hollywood version looked like someone carefully pouring oil in a straight line while following a diagram. My trail cameras recorded the entire 4 a.m. production, including her placing the dead fish, apparently purchased from a grocery store. The receipt was probably still in her BMW Tuesday, escalated to family harassment. Anonymous letters arrived at the school board accusing Sarah of conflicts of interest for teaching while married to an environmental criminal. The letters, written on HOA letterhead, demanded Sarah's immediate firing for associating with agricultural terrorists and promoting toxic farming propaganda in schools. Principal Rodriguez called Sarah at lunch. "Sarah, I've got nonsense here about your husband being an environmental terrorist. Want to explain?" "Tom, it's our HOA president trying to destroy my husband's farm with false accusations. She's facing criminal charges for harassment and embezzlement." Yeah. We get these suburban dramas sometimes. Don't worry, your job's safe. But document everything for your legal case. Wednesday morning produced Brenda's most desperate move yet. Professional-looking signs appeared across the subdivision. Community safety alert. Toxic agricultural operations. Residents advised to avoid outdoor activities during farming operations. Report symptoms to the HOA immediately. She'd fabricated health warnings about normal farming work. The signs included a phone number for reporting agricultural poisoning symptoms and threatened legal action against anyone who removed the official notices. My neighbor Jim called, laughing. "Jake, you seen these crazy signs? Brenda's telling people your corn dust is toxic." Got 3 neighbors asking if they should evacuate during your harvest. Community reactions split predictably. Newer residents, primed by months of Brenda's propaganda, were genuinely worried. Longtime locals were furious at being treated like fools. Mrs. Patterson, a 40-year resident, apparently confronted Brenda directly. "I told that woman if farming was toxic, half this county would be dead by now. She's lost her damn mind." But Brenda's social media campaign reached a fever pitch. Her Facebook group swelled to 80 members, trading increasingly hysterical posts about chemical warfare and agricultural terrorism. Her latest post featured photos of normal farm dust with dramatic captions, "Toxic clouds threatening our children." "When will authorities stop this madness?" Share to save lives. The comments became a battlefield between newer residents demanding action and longtime locals defending reality. Several people shared scientific articles about agricultural dust, safety standards, and environmental compliance. Thursday afternoon, I got the call I'd been expecting. Deputy Martinez with an update on the criminal investigation. "Jake, your neighbor just upgraded herself to federal terrorism charges, filing false reports about chemical weapons, creating public panic about agricultural operations, and something called agro-terrorism threats." Agro-terrorism? "That's a real thing?" I asked. Post-9/11 law about threatening agricultural infrastructure. She'd alleged my farm was conducting chemical attacks on the community. Homeland Security is now involved. Brenda's fake environmental emergency triggered federal anti-terrorism protocols. The autumn air smelled of corn ready for final harvest as I processed the news. Tomorrow was my last harvest run before the HOA meeting. If patterns held, Brenda would make one last dramatic move during harvest. But now she wasn't only facing local harassment charges. She was up against a federal terrorism probe by agencies that don't take false alarms about chemical attacks lightly. The scent of ripening grain blended with the sweet satisfaction of watching someone self-destruct through their own stupidity. 24 hours until harvest. 48 hours until the HOA meeting that would end this war. Time to see how spectacularly Brenda could blow herself up. Friday morning, final harvest day. Dawned with crisp autumn air that makes a farmer's heart sing. The sweet smell of corn ready for cutting mixed with diesel as I prepped the combine for the last run of the season. Brenda had other plans. At 6 a.m., my access road was completely blocked by her BMW, parked sideways across the entrance. Not merely parked, positioned so I couldn't drive around without risking damage to both vehicles. She sat behind the wheel, engine running, windows up, on the phone. Even from 50 yards away, I could sense manic energy in her gestures. This woman had moved beyond desperate into full breakdown territory. My security cameras were rolling as I approached. The crunch of gravel under my boots seemed loud in the morning stillness. "Ma'am, you're blocking my access road," I called through the window. She rolled it down just enough to reply. "I'm documenting unsafe agricultural practices for federal investigators. This road is temporarily closed for public safety. This is my private easement. You're trespassing. We'll see what Homeland Security says about your chemical weapons operation." Chemical weapons. She'd completely lost it. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to move your vehicle so I can carry out normal farming operations." Not happening. "I'm protecting this community from agricultural terrorism." The irony was delicious. In trying to stop my harvest, she was committing the exact crime she'd been accusing me of, interference with agricultural operations. I pulled out my phone and called Deputy Martinez. "Jake here. My access road's blocked by the HOA president. She's claiming authority to shut down farming operations. We'll be right out. Don't engage with her." While we waited for law enforcement, I watched Brenda's BMW like a hawk. She was live streaming on Facebook, narrating her heroic stand against agricultural terrorism to her online followers. "I'm here protecting our community from toxic farming operations," she told her phone. "This man refuses to comply with safety regulations." "Someone has to take a stand." The live comments were brutal. Even some supporters questioned whether blocking roads was legal. Several people pointed out that interfering with farming is a serious crime. Deputy Martinez arrived with backup, 2 patrol cars and what looked like a supervisor. The smell of coffee and authority filled the morning air as they approached. "Ma'am, you need to move your vehicle immediately," Martinez announced. "You're committing criminal interference with agricultural operations." I reminded her that, as HOA president, she had no power to compromise public safety. "Ma'am, the HOA's reach doesn't include blocking public easements or disrupting agricultural work. Move your car right now, or you'll be taken into custody." That was the moment Brenda sealed her fate. Instead of backing up or pulling forward to clear the lane, she floored the gas straight toward my combine harvester parked off the side. Later, she'd claim she was gathering evidence of dangerous machinery threatening the neighborhood. The sound of her luxury sedan colliding with solid farm steel was sickening, metal shrieking, plastic snapping. The nose of her BMW folded like a soda can against the harvester's corn head. Every camera I'd installed kicked on instantly, capturing the impact from multiple views. The footage showed her face clearly through the windshield, jaw set, both hands gripping the wheel, intentionally ramming into my parked equipment. She jumped out almost immediately, yelling that she'd been attacked by farm machinery as coolant spilled onto the gravel and steam hissed from the ruined engine. She demanded deputies arrest me for assault with agricultural equipment. Deputy Martinez kept his composure. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "you drove your car into a stationary piece of machinery. Several cameras caught you accelerating right into it." She argued I had positioned the harvester to strike her. But the machine hadn't moved in half a day, and the recordings proved it. Brenda's spiral went from bad to disastrous within minutes. Her insurer, already probing policy violations, refused coverage on what was clearly an intentional crash. Her leasing company demanded full repayment on the totaled BMW, about $40,000 she didn't have. And worst of all, her own live stream showed it all unfolding. 80 people watched live as she committed insurance fraud, interfered with agriculture, and carried out vehicular assault. By the time the tow truck arrived, Martinez was reciting her rights. "You're under arrest for interfering with agricultural operations, attempting insurance fraud, and reckless endangerment." As her car was hauled away, the autumn sun caught the twisted wreck, the smell of ripening corn mixing with the acrid stench of antifreeze and shattered pride. Martinez turned to me. "We'll need your camera footage." I told him it was already copied to 3 separate backup drives. The tow truck disappeared with $40,000 worth of Brenda's wreckage. What she didn't know yet, tomorrow's HOA meeting would expose the $35,000 she'd stolen. Federal charges were already lined up. Even her husband's business was under investigation. I climbed back into my combine and started the engine. The deep rumble felt like triumph as I resumed my last harvest of the year. For the first time in months, Meadowbrook Estates looked peaceful in the distance. Saturday evening, the Millbrook Community Center buzzed with an energy it hadn't seen since the county fair. Normally, HOA meetings barely drew 30 people to argue over budgets. That night, all 127 homeowners showed up. The room smelled of burnt coffee and tension as chairs scraped across the floor. In the corner sat reporter Tom Onyx, camera ready. He knew this wasn't going to be routine HOA business. Brenda arrived in an Uber, her BMW still strapped to a tow truck somewhere. She'd posted bail, but she looked decades older overnight. Hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled, her usual commanding air replaced by raw defiance. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began shakily, "we're here tonight to discuss the agricultural terrorism threatening our community." The crowd erupted, shouting about embezzlement, pending charges, and her insurance scam. Then Eleanor Walsh stood. At 73, she radiated righteous anger. "Before we discuss anything else, Brenda Ashworth, this community demands an explanation for $35,000 in missing funds." "That's privileged financial information," Brenda tried. "No," Eleanor shot back. "It's our money you stole." My neighbor Jim Martinez wasn't buying her corporate jargon either. Eleanor laid out the documents across the front table like a prosecutor. $15,000 to her husband's firm for legal services, $8,000 to her nephew's landscaping company without bids, $12,000 in phony management fees that paid her BMW lease. Every time her harassment escalated against Jake Hartwell, another fake invoice appeared. She used our money to bankroll her obsession. The numbers left no room for denial. One homeowner after another demanded answers. How long had this gone on? What other contracts were fake? Why hadn't the board stopped it? My attorney, Martha Hendricks, stepped in. As of this morning, Mrs. Ashworth is facing federal charges for agricultural terrorism, environmental fraud, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. The FBI has already frozen all related accounts. The room went silent. With the FBI involved, it wasn't just neighborhood gossip anymore. Then came my turn. I stood with my laptop and projector, ready to present 6 months of records. Friends, let me show you exactly what happened. The 20-minute slideshow dismantled her narrative, time-stamped photos of vandalism, recordings of her threats, security footage of her pouring motor oil to fake environmental contamination, and her increasingly erratic Facebook posts. The finale, her BMW intentionally ramming my harvester, played from several angles, her face unmistakable. This was live-streamed, I explained as her own video rolled. 80 people saw her commit insurance fraud in real time. The hall fell dead silent except for Brenda's voice on the speakers, shrieking about saving the community. When the video ended, Janet Peterson rose. "Brenda, you spent our money to wreck your own car and attack a farmer who's lived here 80 years. Brenda tried weakly. "I was documenting danger." "You're insane," Mike Williams barked from the back. "You stole our dues and then committed suicide by tractor on Facebook Live." The vote was swift. Removal from all HOA posts passed 89-14. Criminal prosecution for embezzlement passed 76-22. A resolution supporting my farming rights unanimous. Even her few allies couldn't defend her anymore. The night's climax came when Deputy Martinez entered with a stack of papers. "Mrs. Ashworth, this is a federal warrant for your arrest on agricultural terrorism charges. You're also being served civil actions from your insurer and your BMW leasing company, seeking $43,000 immediately, as she was cuffed for the second time in 2 days. She turned, snarling, "You'll regret this when his farming poisons your children." The crowd burst into laughter, actual laughter at her being hauled away on terrorism charges. Reporter Tom Onyx captured it all, the evidence, the outrage, the arrest. His story would run across the state, cementing Brenda as a cautionary tale of suburban entitlement. When the deputies left, The homeowners elected an interim board promising transparency and cooperation with agriculture. Ideas flew: a community garden, a farmer's market. That night, the division Brenda created began to heal. Kids planned visits to my farm. Sarah squeezed my hand as we left. "Do you think it's finally over?" I glanced back at the community center, then at the fields waiting for tomorrow's work. It ended the moment she picked a fight with someone who documents everything. 3 months later, justice had run its course. Brenda received 18 months in federal prison for agricultural terrorism, plus 2 more for embezzlement and fraud. Her husband's firm collapsed, their house was lost to legal bills, and BMW garnished her wages for a decade. Sometimes the universe writes its own punchlines. The bigger victory was our community healing. Under Eleanor Walsh's leadership, every stolen dollar was recovered. HOA dues dropped by 20% once her fake contracts were gone. My access road got resurfaced with gravel, ironically paid for by Brenda's theft. That October, the Agricultural Heritage Festival launched during harvest. Families learned about farming, equipment, and safety. Sarah created educational programs now used across the county. The air was sweet with kettle corn and diesel as 3 generations connected over agriculture. Property values rose as people realized preserving farmland added worth. Neighbors even created conservation easements to protect fields from development. What Brenda swore would ruin the neighborhood actually strengthened it. My meticulous documentation became a model. The State Extension Service built a toolkit based on it. Agricultural lawyers across the Midwest cited Hartwell versus Ashworth to defend farmers. Martha Hendricks now specialized in agricultural protection law, using my case as precedent. The story spread nationally. Articles, documentaries, even legislative hearings on HOA abuse, but my favorite outcome was personal. Sarah and I began hosting farm-to-table dinners in our barn, connecting neighbors directly to agriculture. Families Brenda once claimed to protect became our strongest allies. Kids toured my fields, climbing tractors once branded dangerous. 1 year later, a farmer from Oregon visited, carrying copies of my documentation system. "Jake, your case gave us hope that small farms can stand against entitled developers and win." The ripple effect was real. New laws enhanced right-to-farm protections, requiring developers to acknowledge agriculture in contracts. Brenda's harassment had unintentionally strengthened farming rights across 3 states. Standing in my fields that harvest season, watching suburban kids help load corn while their parents learned sustainability, I realized this was never just about one power-hungry HOA president. It was about preserving farming traditions in a world creeping toward urban sprawl, about communities choosing cooperation instead of conflict, about patience, records, and the law triumphing over bullying. Each evening, Sarah joins me on the porch as the sun sets across the corn. She sometimes asks if I miss the drama. I always smile. The best revenge isn't fighting people like Brenda. It's building something beautiful while they destroy themselves. The scholarship fund now helps 3 kids study agriculture each year. The festival draws 5,000 visitors. 800 acres are protected in conservation easements, all funded in part by Brenda's stolen money turned to good. Next week, I'll speak at the state AG conference. My topic: how one HOA president's BMW crash led to stronger agricultural protections. Because sometimes, the best stories write themselves, when entitlement slams into immovable realities like property rights. Solid documentation and farmers who know how to harvest justice. Got your own HOA horror story? Share it below. You'd be surprised how many neighbors are dealing with the same kind of entitled chaos.